Hello, welcome back to my car. I have my laptop here, and I have the entire book of Genesis, all 50 chapters, in two versions. I've got the King James Version and the WEB, which is the World English Bible. From what I understand, it's still being reviewed, but since the English Standard Version, or whatever the ESV stands for, is not public domain, I thought I would use this one instead. If you have any, particular quotes that you prefer from your own version, feel free to drop them in the comments, and we'll try to talk about, what the difference is, or what it means, basically. I did a little bit of reading about Abraham and Moses. They're both fairly legendary, so it's kind of hard to figure out what actually they did versus what is folklore or just stories. To me, it's not really too important because either way, you're not going to find a verifiable history source that says, yeah, and then God showed up and told him what to do. Because, he didn't. It doesn't really matter, whether the people were real or who they were related to. They made up a God. So that's my belief, right? And that's kind of what makes the rest of the Bible so hard to accept, is it's just people making it up. But I don't want to spend too much time saying that even if the God isn't real, there might still be some good in here. We could still be able to use it as a guide. So I think it's best if we just start with the World English Bible. I think it's a little bit simpler to read than the King James Version, but I'll probably go chapter by chapter, switching between them. And this is Moses writing this, from what I understand, allegedly. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty. Darkness was on the surface of the deep, and God's Spirit was hovering over the surface of the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw the light and saw that it was good. God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was evening, and there was morning, the first day. So, I would describe this as mythology. God created the heavens and the earth. What are the heavens? Don't know, never get to see them. What is the earth? I know that one. We live there. It's this planet that we live on. It's a big ball. The earth was formless and empty. Yeah, I mean, if we go back to Big Bang, we don't really know. Formless is, yeah, there was a point where the earth was just not defined. It was just other stuff in a different thing. So, I could kind of get behind there was a point where the earth was formless and empty. At a certain point, it became a big rock, and it was an empty rock. Darkness was on the surface of the deep. Well, it did have water. So God's just chilling out, looking out over the water, being what can I do with this wet ball? God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So that's what? The earth coming into orbit around the sun. God saw the light and saw that it was good. God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was evening and there was morning, the first day. But hey, let's switch over to the other translation. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So it's basically the same. Is vaguely interesting that it says heaven instead of heavens. When I was a kid, I think we were always taught that there was just the one heaven, the one that we all go to after we die and basically hang out worshiping God forever is what we were told. It's just weird to me that they're yeah, the earth was without form and empty. There was water everywhere. Well, wait a second, that water, we use that to live. That's important. I guess God did make the water. He created the heaven and the earth. He created it without form and void, and darkness was on it. And the Spirit of God moved on the water. I don't know why. I don't know what he's doing. I guess he's just looking around. He said, "Let there be light." So he put us around the sun, and he gave us a night. Doesn't apply to the whole world, but that's okay. This was written from a very, particular point in time, place in the world. They didn't know at the time that there were parts of the world that had really long days, probably. Let's get back to WEB. God said, "Let there be an expanse in the middle of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." God made the expanse and divided the waters which were under the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse, and it was so. God called the expanse sky. There was evening and there was morning, a second day. So he said, let there be an expanse in the middle of the waters and let it divide the waters from the waters. And I had interpreted that as land, but apparently he's talking about sky. He made the expanse and divided the waters which were under the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse. So you've got clouds, precipitation, and you've got the ocean. They're describing the water cycle. God called the expanse sky. We have an atmosphere. It protects us. That's where all the water gets caught so that it rains back down. It's less of a intentional thing that you have to design and more of just the consequence of gravity. So if you really want this to make sense to modern people, maybe don't focus on the Earth so much. Maybe focus on the whole universe, because he made the whole thing, right? Allegedly. And it's not like he specifically put a sky on Earth. He made, gravity, I guess, or he made these forces such that an Earth could happen naturally from the processes that he set into motion. The most theism I will tolerate is maybe there was a God who created us, who set the universe in motion. I don't think he handcrafted Earth. I don't think he hand placed us on it. I don't think he here's all your animals, go ahead and name them, kids. No, I don't think it was anything like that. I think that's human wishful thinking and ego. I kind of like that they keep mentioning the days throughout this verse. You get it in the first part. Oh, well, yeah, he made light and dark. He made day and night. But, it comes up repeatedly because that's how time works. You get multiple days and nights, and it's kind of emphasizing that God made things to progress in, in a linear fashion, as far as we can tell so far, through time. We have events that we can witness and even record. And then we can go back to those records and say, oh, yeah, I remember that. And we can, different people can make different records of the same event with the same details. And that's what I think verifies something as true, or at least, something that humans can perceive individually. That gives it more weight than just some one person coming up and saying, this is what I heard God say. It's like, did anyone else hear that? Was anyone else there? If we brought a microphone, would we be able to hear it? No, it's just in your head. There's no way for us to see it because it's not real outside of your brain. Okay, so now we're getting to the land. God said, let the waters under the sky be gathered together to one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. God saw that it was good. God said, let the earth yield grass, herbs yielding seeds, and fruit trees bearing fruit after their kind, with their seeds in it on the earth. And it was so. The earth yielded grass, herbs yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit with their seeds in it after their kind. And God saw that it was good. There was evening and there was morning, a third day. And this is still, I can kind of get behind it as, mythological history, depending on how Pangea was formed, I guess. It probably didn't just rise out of the water. It was probably there the whole time, right? And it's just been shifting around and things. I don't actually know. I don't know a lot about, creation science either. I know bits and pieces. And so, yeah, you're saying this dirt is important because that's where we're going to plant seeds. And the dirt does have a lot of, nutrients and minerals and things to help seeds grow. And the plants then flower, drop more seeds to grow more plants. But how did that happen? I don't think a God went trees and made trees. I think, tiny, tiny, tiny little groups of cells kind of clumped together over a very long time and eventually just through trial and error stumbled upon a way that would let them protect themselves and draw nutrients. And, they picked up all these things pretty much one at a time, probably, to form the features that make seeds. And it's such an effective strategy that many plants are able to evolve it, basically. And what I think this verse kind of obfuscates, or that's a funny word. What I think this verse kind of obscures is that plants don't drop seeds of their kind. They drop seeds that are basically their children. They're a little bit different. They might have mutations. They might eventually turn into an entirely different plant. It's not like person has a person, person has a person, people are the same forever. We were very different a long time ago. And so were plants, and so were animals, and all these other things. And I feel like the biblical accounts, they just didn't have that much information. They just weren't that aware of, obviously of evolution. because they just weren't keeping that close a track. They weren't paying attention to those kinds of changes. They were very preoccupied with all the things going on in their early world. And so I feel like the Bible is always trying to encapsulate this one perfect moment and be like, just live this way forever. But that's not how life works. That's not how anything that we know of works. Everything is changing constantly. Your own body is full of cells. The cells are full of atoms. The atoms are all these tiny, tiny little particles just floating around in clouds. And inside of your brain, there's a lot of signalage going on. And a very long time ago, someone more primitive than any of us today had some thoughts up there and was like, what if it's God? And that's what they wrote. And that's what some people believe, just because they wrote it, and just because they said to believe it, and just because they said, well, maybe you can feel it, and you can feel whatever you want. So God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to divide the day from the night, and let them be signs to mark seasons, days, and years. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light to the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. God saw that it was good. There was evening and there was morning, a fourth day. So, like, this is just bad science. God made a daylight and a nightlight, right? But the nightlight isn't actually a light, it's a reflection of the sun. And the sun isn't, like, that special. It's a star. It's like all the other stars, just way closer. Like, this whole passage, this whole chapter so far is putting way too much emphasis on earth, and like, God made us. He made us special. And that gives us way too much self-importance. That's why your egos get out of control, because you believe you're like the protagonist of the universe and of the planet. But there's so much else going on. It is not just about you. It's not just about humans. Humans have been a blight on this planet and all the other living things on it. It's terrible. Speaking of which, God said, let the waters abound with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the sky. God created the large sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarmed after their kind, and every winged bird after its kind. God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. There was evening and there was morning, a fifth day. I don't have a lot to say about this. There were sea critters probably first. The hot, moist soup of earth bred life. Again, it wasn't God saying, here you go, fishies, I made a home for you. It was all these cells and just matter from the universe mixing in this soup until enough cells clump together and send each other enough signals to make something happen. God said, let the earth produce living creatures after their kind, livestock, creeping things, and animals of the earth after their kind, and it was so. God made the animals of the earth after their kind, and the livestock after their kind, and everything that creeps on the ground after its kind. God saw that it was good. He made livestock? He was like, oh, I'm going to make these animals specifically to be slaughtered, to be eaten by humans. They'll love it. What a dick. God said, let's make man in our image, after our likeness. Who is us? Who is our? Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. God created man in his own image. In God's image he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them. God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. God said, behold, I have given you every herb yielding seed, which is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which bears fruit yielding seed. It will be your food. To every animal of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food. And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. There was evening and there was morning, a sixth day. So I hated that part. So God said, let's make man in our image, after our likeness. Who is us? Who is he talking about? Is that the Holy Spirit? Is that the Jesus? Is that God and like whatever angel buddies are hanging around? Is that God and Moses? Is Moses alleging that like that I was there right next to him watching him make earth? I don't think so, but that's funny. So I'm looking at the King James Version now just to see if it's any different there. God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So the King James Version actually says that he put heaven just above the water, but they still mention the waters above the firmament. So it's like, I guess there's water in heaven. And God said, let the waters under the earth be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called the seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And in the evening and the morning were the third day. There's a lot of repetition, which is definitely something I remember from Sunday school. Because that's kind of how your brain works. Like, if you get the same message over and over again, you just start to accept it, even if it's based on nothing, even if it's a bad message. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for the signs, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. Let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. I like that both versions. He's like, and the stars. They're not important, but they're there too. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. That's another question that I have. He keeps saying it's good. What does that mean? What is his standard? We don't get to know. Moses, I guess, thought it was good. I don't know. God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters in the seas, and let the fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the earth, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Abuse! Subdue the earth, conquer it, under your dominion. Fuck that. Can we coexist with the earth? Can we live with the things that were already fucking here instead of trying to control everything? Because that is what leads to a lot of our problems, is trying too hard to control things that shouldn't be fucking controlled. That and trying to do too much at once. So yeah, we're starting chapter 1 of the Bible with abusive God. Creating a world with living creatures in it, supposedly, just based on what I've read here, for us to conquer, us to subdue. Not live with harmoniously, not prop up or help. We're on top and they're below us is what God would have you think. I don't get that impression when I see animals. I get that we have better brains. That's our big advantage, is we got this lucky mutation that gave us giant brains, and so like we can run circles around most animals intellectually. But like they still feel and they still have their own thoughts, you know. You can talk to animals and they seem to understand, or at least receive some of your signals. I think we do them a great disservice and make it much easier to dismiss them, abuse them, mistreat them, neglect them when we act like we are above them. And I think that's exactly the same attitude that my parents raised us with, and that did so much damage in our lives. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Because a human wrote this, and it says that humans are on top. And the human said, oh yeah, God would love that. God loves me, and God loves putting me on top. God made us in his image. What does that mean? Does he look like us? What does that mean? It's so open to interpretation, it may as well be meaningless. And I actually think that it's an insane leap in logic to be like, yeah, of course we look like God. Why wouldn't we? What do you mean? Why would we? What the fuck? Why would God make us look like him? And how do we all look like him when we all look different? It's just wishful thinking. You want humans to be at the center. So that's how you wrote your Bible, and that's how you read it. There's no reason to believe that we're on top other than that we're lucky, we got good brains. And when you give an imaginary person credit for your creation, You take away from the creation of every person, from how fortunate it is, what a miracle it is that we're all here. Not because some all-powerful deity said boop and just pushed a button and did it, because we had to go through so much fucking shit. So many centuries, millennia of evolution of things, processes, interactions. And as soon as we develop our big brains, we tell lies. We tell world-ruining lies about how great and special we are. Please use your brains. Realize how much harm you are doing with this nonsense, this unfounded nonsense. Because let's see, who was Moses here? Moses was a Hebrew prophet, teacher, and leader. According to Abrahamic tradition, he is considered the most important prophet in Judaism and Samaritism, and one of the most important prophets in Christianity, Islam, the Baha'i faith, and the other Abrahamic religions. Also, if I pronounce things wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments. I do not know Hebrew or Greek. According to the book of Exodus, Moses was born at a time when his people, the Israelites, an enslaved minority, were increasing in population, and as a result, the Egyptian pharaoh worried that they might ally themselves with Egypt's enemies. Moses' Hebrew mother, Jochebed, secretly hid him when Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys to be killed in order to reduce the population of the Israelites. Through Pharaoh's daughter, the child was adopted as a foundling from the Nile and grew up with the Egyptian royal family. After killing an Egyptian slave master who was beating a Hebrew, Moses fled across the Red Sea to Midian, where he encountered the angel of the Lord, speaking to him from within the burning bush on Mount Horeb, which he regarded as the mountain of God. And I do remember most of this stuff. That might have even been in that, like, Prince of Egypt movie or whatever. But then if we get to the actual, historical part, the majority of scholars see the biblical Moses as a legendary figure while retaining the possibility that Moses, or a Moses-like figure, existed. And yeah, I bet there was a person who inspired all these stories, maybe even multiple people. The Egyptian name Moses is mentioned in ancient Egyptian literature. In the writing of Jewish historian Josephus, ancient Egyptian historian Manetho is quoted writing of a treasonous ancient Egyptian priest Osursef, who renamed himself Moses and led a successful coup against the providing pharaoh, subsequently ruling Egypt for years until the pharaoh regained power and expelled Osursef and his supporters. The biblical account of Moses' birth provides him with a folk etymology to explain the ostensible meaning of his name. He is said to have received it from the pharaoh's daughter. He became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." The Hebrew etymology in the biblical story may reflect an attempt to cancel out traces of Moses' Egyptian origins. The Egyptian character of his name was recognized by such as ancient Jewish writers like Philo and Josephus. Philo linked Moses' name to the Egyptian word for water in reference to his finding in the Nile in the biblical folk etymology. Josephus, in his Antiquities of the Jews, claims that the second element, Isis, or Esses, meant those who are saved. The problem of how an Egyptian princess, who according to the biblical account found in the book of Exodus gave him the name, could have known Hebrew, puzzled medieval Jewish commentators like Abraham ibn Ezra and Hezekiah ben Manoah. Hezekiah suggested she either converted to the Jewish religion or took a tip from Jochebed. Might have had like a note written on him or something. They're like, yeah, there's no proof, but whatever, it still could have happened. There was probably a Moses-like person, but he could have been an Egyptian who, made up all this other stuff. Like, there's so many possibilities. It's not necessarily the one that is most true, the one that seems most likely. It's just the one you prefer, and that's not how belief should work. The story of Moses' discovery follows a familiar motif in ancient Near Eastern mythological accounts of the ruler who rises from humble origins. For example, in the account of the origin of Sargon of Akkad, "My mother, the high priestess, conceived. In secret she bore me. She set me in a basket of rushes. With bitumen she sealed my lid. She cast me into the river which rose over me." So, pretty similar to Moses. It seems kind of like an Epic of Gilgamesh thing, where they're just copying a different religion. And there's no way to verify it one way or the other, so you really do just get to pick. In my case, I don't believe in God. I don't see any reason to. I believe that the people who wrote the Bible about him, working off of the legends at the time, like, they didn't have a way of verifying any of this, but they felt that it was true, and so they convinced each other that it was true, and they wrote down that it was true, and they wrote down that you also have to believe it. Ooh, here's a fun one. Criticism of Moses. In the late 18th century, the deist Thomas Paine commented at length on Moses' laws in the Age of Reason. Paine considered Moses to be a detestable villain and cited Numbers 31 as an example of his unexampled atrocities. In the passage, after the Israelite army returned from conquering Midian, Moses orders the killing of the Midianites with the exception of the virgin girls who were to be kept for the Israelites. "Have ye saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Now, therefore, kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known a man by lying with him. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. That's the Bible. That's Moses. Justify it with God. God's abuse. Human abuse. You can justify anything when you believe things that aren't true. You can let that feeling tell you that you deserve as many virgins as you want. Maybe, you're probably not demanding virgins like Moses, but you are living on a lie. Your whole worldview is skewed. You are not seeing things the way that they are, and you are seeing things the way that they're not. That's why I can't even talk to half of you. That's why you're so not helpful in anything. All you want to do is keep the religion spinning. You want to keep the same thing going the same way, but we need to throw the whole thing out. It's really bad. Rabbi Joel Grossman argued that the story is a powerful fable of lust and betrayal, and that Moses' execution of the women was a symbolic condemnation of those who seek to turn sex and desire to evil purposes. You see the parts that you don't like, just pretend that those weren't real. All the parts that you want to believe, those were real. All the parts that weren't, no way. God wouldn't do that. Because all of a sudden, you know what God wouldn't do. All right, and if we go over to Abraham, most scholars view the patriarchal age, along with the Exodus and the period of the biblical judges, as a late literary construct that does not relate to any particular historical era, and after a century of exhaustive archaeological investigation, no evidence has been found for a historical Abraham. It is largely concluded that the Torah, the series of books that includes Genesis, was composed during the early Persian period, 500 BC, as a result of tensions between Jewish landowners who had stayed in Judah during the Babylonian captivity and traced their right to the land through their father Abraham, and the returning exiles who based their counterclaim on Moses and the Exodus tradition of the Israelites. These lies were made up for land, so that people could take shit. Because they just felt like they deserved it. So they invented a god that gave them all the rights that they needed to take it. It's so transparent. How do you look at this and think, no, it's actually real? God actually did all that. God wanted these people to have that land and these people to have that land. And he made all the earth for us. And he made us the best. And but even when we don't do it right, we're still following his plan, because his plan is everything. And we can't, he loves us. So it's all okay. Like, that's what you sound like. I don't know, man. It's childish shit. It's based on nothing. You really want to believe the lie. I know. Death is scary. But this life on Earth might be all we got. So can we give it a little bit more focus? Can we give it a little bit more weight? And instead of giving power to a God no one can prove exists, how about we focus on things that we can actually verify? Things that, like I was saying before, you get records from different perspectives and they have overlapping details. That stuff, to me, is more believable than he said, which is what we're getting right now in the Bible. Moses seems to have a lot of reason to lie. Based on that Numbers quote, he is a scumbag. He doesn't value human life or, anyone outside of himself and his chosen people. I think Christianity is a lot more exclusionary and bigoted than Christians are willing to realize or admit. And I think that's part of the reason that they don't want to overturn their faith, as well as the fear of living in a world without God. Yes, I'm terrified of death. I don't know what's going to happen. But that lets me enjoy every day a little bit more. And it also makes me, that much more upset that my parents wasted so many of my days with this nonsense, this baseless, damaging, horrible nonsense. So I would like to see us all together continue exploring how and why thoroughly the Bible is bullshit, and why it's so dangerous, and why it shouldn't be treated as any kind of serious thing. We should acknowledge it as the lie that it is, and look at it as that historical oddity. Like, wow, isn't it crazy that we all believed this stupid thing for so long? So many people did so many atrocities in the name of a God no one even can prove exists, that by all accounts does not actually exist. I think I'll stop there for now. First chapter is a big doozy. Discuss some of the origins of the Bible and the people who wrote it, or at least this part of it. And we're right out the gate. Abuse. It's terrible. It's a terrible document. You shouldn't use it as the basis of your religion. The God that it's about is unprovable. No one's ever, seen him, talked to him. You get feelings and you can hear voices in your head. You have a super powerful imagination. And sometimes, it does its own thing. And you are a victim to it because you don't believe in truth. You don't believe in verifiable facts. So your brain just runs wild. It has no ground. I'm going inside. It's hot out here.